Good afternoon, Year 4. Hope you're getting ready for your geography lesson today. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Now, we've been looking over the last couple of weeks at settlements. And so today, I'd like you to do this little starter. I've got a map of the world here. And on the map of the world, I've got various little red dots. Pause the video for a minute and think what those mean, those little red dots. Well done. Those little red dots represent places around the world, cities or towns. So what I'd like you to do is have a think. What patterns do you spot from this map, from these settlements? And what can you infer? Now remember, what does the word infer mean? It means to guess. So what guesses can you make from this map and these settlements? Have a go at that now. Well done. Okay, now you probably have noticed that all of these settlements have the word York in them. We have York in England, and then we have York in Australia, and York in Canada, York in Alabama in the USA, and New York in the USA as well. Now, obviously, they all have the same word, which means they're all named after each other. Do you remember that Britain had an empire? Well, all these places were part at some point of the British Empire. And I think whoever named them wasn't very inventive. They just used the names lots of different times. So that is what I have noticed. Perhaps you found something else. I'll be interested to see what you find out later and you can tell me all about it. Right, let's get started today. So I'm going to ask you in your books to write today's date, which is Monday the 25th of January, and today's learning objective, which is to compare land use in different settlements. Well done. Okay, now let's just get started today. And we're going to be thinking about the different categories of settlement. We already know that there's different types of settlement. For example, there's villages, there's towns, there's cities, there's hamlets. But within a town and a city, there are different categories of settlement. Now here I've drawn a key, and this little square here represents a building. So let's look at the different types or different categories of settlements. First of all, we have a linear settlement here. This means that the buildings, if you notice, are along a line. Do you see the word line in linear? This is a nucleated settlement. Can you see all the buildings are gathered around one spot, like the nucleus of something, the middle? Oh dear, what's happened here? There you go. And this one is a dispersed settlement. Can you see all the buildings are quite far apart? They are dispersed from each other. I'd like you in your books to draw these settlements. I'd like you to write a key and show a little building, which will be a square, and write building. And then I'd like you to draw the 3 different types. Pause the video and do that now. Well done. Now here we have a map, and these are the settlement patterns that we can see on the map. Can you see the linear one? Oh, look, all the houses, the buildings are all built in a straight line along a line. What does that line represent? That's right, it represents a road. Look at this settlement over here, where all the houses are dispersed over a far distance. Quite near a road, some of them, but not all of them. And here we've got a nucleated settlement, haven't we? Probably a small town, or maybe even a city, where all the buildings are quite close together around a nuclear area. And here's a very isolated settlement. We've only got 1 or 2 buildings, 1 building in this instance. Let's have a look what it'd look like in aerial photographs. Pause the video now and see which picture is what type of settlement. You're going to need to use your drawings that you've done in your book to help you with this. Well done. Okay, now picture A, you can see, is very rural. There's very few buildings and they're quite far apart. They are dispersed. This is an example of a dispersed settlement. Let's look at picture C. Again, quite a rural village, probably, I would guess. lots of fields surrounding this village, but all the buildings are built around a central point. This is a nucleated category of settlement. And finally, B, this looks like a seaside town, doesn't it? Here we've got the sea and a pier. And look, there's a long road and all the buildings are built around that long road. This is an example of a linear settlement. Now, here is another map that sometimes you can look at. I've got this from Google Maps, this picture. And you can see there's lots of different things on this map. You can see that there's Marks and Spencer's. And look, there's Primark. There's the police station. Pause the video. What else can you spot in this map? Well done. You probably spotted McDonald's and Nando's, and there's the bank, HSBC. Do you notice that they all have little pictures, don't they? That gives us a clue to what you would do in these buildings. For example, in Primark, there's a little bag. I wonder if that's because you would carry your shopping in the bag. And here's a little picture of a policeman, because that's the police station. And here we can see, yes, some buses. I think this must be a main bus route. Okay, now what I'd like us to do now is when I think about these, how is the land being used in each picture? These pictures you'd find in probably most towns and cities. Here we have this picture. This is the land here is being used for agriculture. What does that mean, agriculture? You might need to go and look that word up on a dictionary. Agriculture means farming, doesn't it? Look, the land has been used here to do farming. We've probably got some wheat growing in that field. The land here is being used for housing. We all know what a house is, don't we? And we can see here we've got some houses in a linear settlement. Here we've got some industrial land use. Probably some factories here. I wonder what they're making. You can see this big chimney churning out all this smoke. Maybe this is quite a polluted area to live in because it's very industrial. And this land use, it's been used for businesses. Probably people go to work in these buildings. You can see there's a car park where people will drive and go and settle. These might be sometimes on the outskirts of towns. And here we have some leisure use. We can see that there's an Odeon here, there's a cinema, there's a Costa Coffee. These will be the places where we go to spend our leisure time, our free time when we want to have fun. And here's this one here. Now you might not recognise this word. It says retail. Can you guess what retail must mean by looking at the picture? That's right, retail must mean shopping, mustn't it? So the land's been used here for shopping. Now we're going to have a look at some maps now, and we're going to see if we can spot these land uses in the pictures. Right, so here we have an aerial photograph of some land. You also have this worksheet, which has been uploaded onto Dojo. I'd like you to use that sheet now to look closely at this map. And I'd like you to see what kind of land use you can spot. Look closely at what's been written. Look closely here at the building shapes. Houses are usually easy to spot because they're in roads. Can you see some examples of some houses? Schools usually suggest there's a residential area. That means where people live. Can you spot a school in this map? Industrial buildings are larger than houses and often are grey or white in colour on the maps. Can you spot any of the other things though? Is there any agricultural land? Is there any retail land? Is there any industrial land? Pause the video now and fill in that worksheet. Well done. Okay, now the rest of the lesson, you're going to look and compare 3 different places around the UK. There's Glasgow, Scunthorpe and Clogollen. I think I pronounced that correctly. I might need to check that later. These 3 places, I'd like you to spot if they're similar or if they're different. So for example, each one you're going to fill in the boxes here, here and here and answer these questions. And at the end, you're going to summarise the similarities and the differences. That means the things that are the same in each place and the things that are different in each place. You're going to need to use Google Maps to do that. So I've added links to the Google Map pages here but you'll be able to access that on your worksheet. So if you click on that on your worksheet, it should hopefully take you through to the internet if you're opening it up on the computer. You will probably need to zoom in closer. To zoom in on the map, you will press the plus button and the minus button, and that will take you in and then take you out. See how much you can find out about these 3 different places, and I look forward to later on hearing everything that you have found out. Have a good afternoon, Year 4.